Leeds United have faced off with Sunderland in what was a surprisingly very dominant performance from Leeds United. Now, it was relatively understated, sure, and it ended up just being a 1-0 win, but at the end of the day, if you're winning in pre-season and you're performing very solidly, isn't that all that counts? So in this video, I'm going to talk through some of the main performances we can pay attention to, some of the people that I felt went a little bit missing in the match, and ultimately some of the lessons that we can learn from this, and ultimately sort of find out what direction pre-season is going in. But before I do so, just pop a like on the video, subscribe, that'd be very nice of you, thank you very much. And to begin with, I've got to deal with sort of the headline figure, the big man at the centre of absolutely everything, which is Muharemovic, who managed to prove himself to be a very, very good centre-back in this match. There were times where, Sunderland would sort of try to work their way through the lines or play a nice through ball in behind, and good old Tariq was just incredibly quick, incredibly strong in the tackle, able to just shove his foot in whenever, wherever. I saw a tweet partway through the match that was directly linking Muharemovic's performance with the first time we saw Ben White, in that you had a centre-back that was performing to a standard that you weren't particularly sure was possible. Like, we've been used to Joe Rodon being one of our better centre-backs, and we've been used to having centre-backs that kind of do the job, sure, but not that set the game on fire. But for the first 45 minutes of that match, Muharemovic made it look like Sunderland just weren't on the pitch. They would try and try and try, but they did absolutely nothing to us through the first half and through the early chunk of the second half where Muharemovic was on the pitch. We controlled that match a hell of a lot, and a significant part of that was Muharemovic playing his role to a T. It was genuinely fantastic, and to be completely fair as well, it's not like Rodon and Bornau were nowhere. They did their jobs absolutely perfectly, and I think Rodon showed a little bit of that anger and that spark that we love from him, because he got absolutely wiped out by Brobby at one point and just immediately squared up to him and went, you don't do that. This is a friendly, but we cannot be friendly if you want. And I really, really love to see that from Joe Rodon, who again did his sort of semi-right back job a lot of the time as well, sort of filling in for Bogle when he just went up the pitch, which is a tactical tweak that I wondered if we keep seeing this season. I'm very glad that we are seeing it still this season, because I think it is one of the more important factors in the way that we play. Since I've started towards the back of the pitch and I'm apparently working my way forward, just to cover off Alex Cairns, he was fine. That's all I really have to say on Cairns. Interestingly, Lucas Perry reportedly has a bit of a knock, but from other reports, specifically the match commentary, he's having a medical at Torino tomorrow. So my own little joke is, did he knock his head on the plane when he was trying to get in to fly over to Italy? I don't know. But it's looking like Lucas Perry's definitely on the way out, which to me says that James Trafford is definitely on the way in. That feels like that will be announced very, very, very shortly, I believe. Working the way forward, Bogle did fairly well. He was a significant part of the press in their half, which is something that relatively surprised me. I didn't quite expect him to be that high all the time, but is a very, very significant part, not only in possession but out of possession now as well, where he was effectively trying to force Sunderland back to their own goal line time and time and time again in a way that Gudmundsson wasn't. So Gudmundsson again, I think, will play a bit of a deeper role than Bogle, but then again, I think DCL will play a deeper role than Bogle sometimes. That's just the way that he plays. When it comes to the left-hand side, Gabby was fine. He didn't particularly shine. It was a case of he felt like he was sort of kept out of the game a little bit, and he didn't do quite as much as happened on the left-hand side. But then again, this wasn't really a game of many chances. The goal that we scored was one that came out of effectively nothing, where Outanaka wins the ball back, comes forward to Mecha, who sees their goalkeeper off his line, has a shot, and the goalkeeper can't really do anything about it, which I thought was fairly funny. But it's one of those where you got to sort of ask, what are you doing, goalkeeper? If you do that in the league, you're in deep, 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 deep trouble. You're probably not going to start for your side. Midfield was sort of fine. Longstaff made himself fairly busy. He did what you need him to do, but nothing especially special, which might feel like a sort of mean way of saying it, but that's the sort of vibe that I got. Tanaka got an assist, but it was an assist again that I don't necessarily think counts as an assist. It might feel quite harsh, but fair, I guess. Beyond that, Harry Wilson again didn't shine too much, but I don't think this was a game for the attacking players in the same way that is it Callum Mills, I think, that played on the other flank, did his job, but you sort of expect that. He showed little bits of brightness, a little spark here and there, but nothing that sort of... He's very clearly got a hell of a lot of promise, and we might see a little bit of him going forward this season, but I imagine that's not going to be the case. I think it'll be a case of he's getting minutes now because not all of our players have come back from international duty yet, like an Aronson, and in addition to that, if we look to sign another winger or another forward, I don't think he gets minutes, but I think he's proven himself to be fairly interesting. We are learning a lot about what the tactics are going to be this season, because we've had roughly the same shape recently as we had towards the end of last season, being 5 at the back, but with the Bogle bombing on and the Rodon effectively being a right back, so in possession it's a 4. We've had a decent look at what that first team will look like. It was kind of interesting seeing Stack not being in that initial first team, but I think that's a case of maybe he wasn't ready for the full batch of minutes or they wanted to test something out. But Stack, I think, looked really good in the second half. Maybe it was a case of you're not going to play your full first team and then a full second team because you want to keep people roughly on the same level of fitness. Ultimately, I think it was a very strong showing from Leeds. It showed that we are able to dominate matches, control the opposition, and ultimately get our fitness back, which wasn't the case against Wrexham. Against Wrexham, it fully looked like this is just a training session. In this one, it was more of a case of, right, Sunderland have played a few matches in pre-season. We have played a few matches in pre-season. We're going to try and dominate this game. And we did. Sunderland are in Europe next season. Let's not forget this. And I think the way that we ran that game, and again, you can't take too much from pre-season, but the way that we ran that game really was noticeable because they felt like they struggled. And it wasn't a case of them being bad, it was a case of us being good enough to make them struggle and make them have to overly work, which is ultimately very, very, very promising for us. Anyway, I'm going to end that video in a moment's time, but ultimately, to sum up, Muhramovic is a ridiculously good player. There's more to see from Harry Wilson. Can't wait to see James Trafford in net. That's going to be a big turnaround as well. And additionally, sort of excited to see what the season has ahead, because as performances go, that was incredibly promising. Gonna leave that video there. In the morning, if I get the chance, because it's a very, very sort of busy day tomorrow, I will do my best to get something out about Lucas Perry going for his medical, but I feel like that is in the process of happening, regardless of Graham Smith saying that he doesn't think it is. I think it's one of those where, at the very least, that knock is more of a he's being kept out of the squad to avoid any potential injuries kind of deal. We'll find out what else I do tomorrow. Who knows? We'll see. I'm also looking forward to the Liverpool match. We might beat them. I don't know. That'd be fun. But yeah, like, subscribe, become a channel member, all that kind of stuff. It is now about 3 in the morning, so I'm going to call that one there. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you all later. Doodaloo. Where's the end recording button? There it is. Ta-ra.